Cold Comfort Farm by Stella Gibbons, Chapter 15. It was now nearly 12 o'clock, and a general movement was made to return to the ballroom. The orchestra had been refreshed by some supper, and broke immediately into a jolly tune, to which the lancers could be danced. And away pranced everybody, and danced until every cheek was crimson and the floor was scattered with fans, hairpins, shoe buttons, and wilting flowers. Claude was as light on his feet as the harlequin he sometimes resembled, and while Flora was springing around the room, just guided by the cool touch of his hands, she observed Elfine in Richard's arms, and saw with satisfaction how marvelously happy she looked and how beautiful. Flora glowed with content. Her aim was achieved. She felt as though she had shaken her fist in the face of Aunt Ada Doom. Elfine was rescued. Henceforth her life would be one of exquisite, sunny, natural content. She would bear children, and found a line of pleasant, ordinary English people who were blazing with poetry in their secret souls. All was as it should be. And Flora, energetically prancing herself to a standstill as the lancers ended, clapped her hands vigorously, half with the desire for an encore, but more for the joy she felt in her evening's work. "How you do enjoy yourself, don't you, Florence Nightingale?" observed Claude. "I do," retorted Flora, "and so do you." It was true, he did, but never without a pang of exquisite pain in his heart, and a conviction that he was a traitor. In the pause that followed the music, Flora observed that Richard was leading Elfine to the staircase, and they went slowly up it to where his mother sat on the balcony with a number of her older friends. Flora moved forward also, in case she should be needed, but before she could begin to mount the stairs, Richard left his mother, over whom he had been bending in conversation, and coming forward to the balcony rail, held his hand up for silence. Elfine stood beside him, but slightly in the background. Flora could not see the expression on the face of Mrs. Hawk-Monitor, who was hidden by Richard's body, but she observed that the face of Joan Hawk-Monitor bore an expression that was a curious blend of dismay and interest and envy. "But then that shade of blue would do anything to anybody's face," Flora comforted herself. "Ladies and gentlemen," said Dick, "it's been awfully jolly seeing you all here tonight, and I'm awfully glad you could all come. I shall always be glad to remember you were all here on my 21st birthday. It makes it all so much jollier somehow. I do like a cheery mob round me, what?" He paused. There was laughter and some clapping. Flora held her breath. He must announce the engagement. If he did not, she would know, whatever might happen afterwards, that her plot had failed. But it was all right. He was speaking again. He was drawing Elfine forward to face the guests and taking her hand in his. "And this is a painfully jolly evening for me, because I've got something else to tell you all. I want to tell you that Miss Starkadder and I are engaged." There. It was out. A storm of clapping and excited comment broke forth, and people began streaming up the staircase to offer their congratulations. Flora, feeling quite weak after the nervous excitement of the past few minutes, turned to Claude and said, "There, that's over. Oh, Claude. But do you think we ought to go up and speak to Mrs. Hawk-Monitor? I must confess that I would rather not." Claude, however, said decidedly that he thought it would be most incorrect if Flora did not do so, for she was there, after all, in the capacity of Elfine's chaperone, and the whole course of affairs had already been so irregular that anything Flora could do to give a coloring of conversation to the situation would count in Elfine's favor. So Flora, reluctantly agreeing, went up the staircase to tackle Mrs. Hawk-Monitor. She found the poor lady looking dazed. She was sitting in an alcove, receiving the thanks and congratulations upon the success of the ball from those guests who were already departing. Flora was relieved to notice that the healthy Joan was standing some distance away by the door, so she would not have to cope with her, as well as with Mamma H.M. Flora went forward with an outstretched hand. "Thank you so much. Such a lovely party, and so nice of you to let us come." But Mrs. Hawk-Monitor had risen, and was looking very gravely at her. She might be a vague woman and a darling, but she was not a fool. She took an eyeful of Flora, and knew that here was a young woman of good sense. Her heart lodged for some reassurance in the midst of the dismay and doubt which possessed her. She said almost pleadingly, "Miss Post, I will be frank with you. I cannot pretend that I am delighted at this engagement. Who is this young lady? I have only met her once before. I know nothing of her or her family." She is a gentle, docile person," said Flora earnestly. "She is only 17. I think she can be moulded into exactly what you would wish her to be, dear Mrs. Hawk-Monitor. Pray do not be distressed. I am sure that you will learn to like Elfine. Do you believe me when I say she has excellent qualities? As for her family, if I may venture to offer you some advice, I should take steps at once to see that she sees next to nothing of them for the next few weeks. There will probably be strong opposition to the match. Opposition? What impertinent... She checked herself. She was amazed and at a loss. She had assumed that Elfine's family would be overjoyed at their offspring's luck. Indeed, Mrs. Starkadder, her grandmother, has always intended for Elfine to marry her cousin Urk. I am afraid there may be some opposition from him, too. In fact, the sooner you can arrange for the marriage to take place, the better it will be for Elfine. Oh dear, I had hoped for a year's engagement at least. Dick is still so young. The more reason why he should begin at once to be utterly happy, smiled Flora. Indeed, Mrs. Hawkmonitor, I do really think it will be better if you can arrange for the wedding to take place in a month at the latest. Things at the farm are sure to be very unpleasant for Elfine until she leaves, and I am sure you do not want a lot of interference and discussion from the Starkadders, do you? Such a dreadful name, too, mused Mrs. Hawkmonitor. At this moment, the arrival of Seth and Claude, dressed ready to depart, made it impossible to discuss the matter any further. Mrs. Hawkmonitor had only time to press Flora's hand, muttering in a friendlier tone than she had yet used. I will think over what you say. Perhaps, after all, everything is for the best. So Flora went off in comparatively high spirits. They found Elfine, looking like a white rose peony, waiting for them at the door. Dick was with her, tenderly saying good night to her. Flora could see their car, with the chauffeur at the door, waiting for them at the foot of the steps. So after a pleasant farewell to Dick, they got away at last. Flora felt quite desolate after they had dropped Claude outside the Crown of Roses, where he was staying for the night. She was rather sleepy and cross and suffering from a reaction after the evening's excitements, so she shut her eyes and slept more or less successfully until the car was within 2 miles or so from home. Then she woke with a little start. Voices had roused her. Seth was saying, in a tone that was distinctly tinged with gloating, Aye, the old un'll have somewhat to say about this night's work. Grandmamma can't stop me getting married. Maybe not, but she'll have a damn good try. She cannot do much in a month, broke in Flora coldly, and possibly Elfine will be staying with the Hawkmonitors for most of the time. She must just avoid Aunt Ada while she is in the house. That's all. Heaven knows it ought not to be a very difficult thing to do, considering that Aunt Ada never leaves her bedroom. Seth gave a low, gloating laugh. An animal quality throbbed in the sound like the network of veins below a roat's fur. The car was just drawing up at the gate leading into the yard, and Seth, leaning past Flora, pointed through the window with one thick finger at the farmhouse. Flora stared in the direction to which he pointed and saw, with a thrill of dismay, that the windows of the farm were ablaze with light. And that is the end of chapter 15.